Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond the Lane. I am Wynne, your host, bringing you some discussion here with the new coaching and managerial staff behind Immortals, an LCS team ready to take North America by storm. But why believe that for me when you could hear it from them? We have Dylan Falco, the head tech coach of the team, Robert Yip, the performance coach, and Kang, the team manager. Guys, how are you doing today?
Oh, we're doing pretty good.
Doing awesome.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Looking good, feeling good?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Busy yet?
A couple of the guys just moved in yesterday, so it's been a pretty busy time around the house, just setting everything up, getting ready to start practice the next little bit, and just getting sort of everyone acclimated to the environment.
You mentioned moving into the new team house. How is that process going?
Pretty good. We arrived here about almost 3 weeks ago, myself and Dylan, and we met up with Dodo here, and we kind of set up everything for the team house so that when the players got in here, everything set up, the tables, the computers, the schedule, the food, everywhere we're going to go. So we made sure that it wasn't really a work in progress when all 5 members arrived, that they'd kind of just slot into what we already had established before.
So you wanted to have kind of a regimen established for them when they came into the house?
Yeah, exactly. So that, there's no like bedding in problem or time frame whereby they were still testing things out. We did that before they got here. So we pretty much have a good idea of how we'd like to do or follow on from the next month leading into LCS.
Are you already practicing for the LCS season coming up?
Well, two of the players just got in yesterday, Huni and Reignover, so we haven't started scrimming yet, no.
Right. Well, I'm going to step back a bit here. Tell me about how the team came together originally, the three of you, how you got in touch with the organization, how the organization came into the LCS. Like, how did Immortals come to be?
Yeah, well, first of all, Immortals bought the team that I was in, Team 8, originally, and then I got into work with the Immortals by talking to Noah, our owner, to as a team manager because I wanted to retire as a player and then I was going to work as a manager. So, and I had the experience to work as a manager too, so I got in touch with Noah and then we worked things out.
And how did you, Robert, and Dylan get involved?
Noah approached me after like a while ago about putting the team together. I think the cool thing about this project is it's something that we get to put together from the ground up. And Noah came to me with pretty much like a blank slate. Like we needed to create a full roster. We needed to create a team house environment, create a coaching staff. So I've spent a lot of time working with teams for the past year and a half. So I really, it was a great opportunity to build everything right from the ground up. What about you, Robert?
Pretty similar. I was kind of the last person on board. By someone. I got in contact with Noah, I spoke to him, I spoke with Dylan, I kind of heard what their plan was for the Immortals as a franchise and with the team, and we kind of have similar goals and views with how we want to run things, and like my background is in traditional sports, but I've been involved in esports for a few years now, probably about 4 years, mostly in StarCraft, so it's kind of new that you've got like traditional sports coaches involved in esports, but I think everyone is gravitating towards that now. You have CLG, TSM, there are going to be teams in North America that will adopt that more so than European teams, but everyone's looking for that kind of extra, I guess, winning percentage they can get. So the support staff is always growing, and I think our goals are kind of aligned with how we want to see the team run in the long term. And it was really, really interesting. Like Dylan said, it's pretty much a startup. Everything's a blank slate. There's no culture attached to the team. There's nothing already there. There's nothing to break, no bad habits. So if we can get everything done on the ground floor, building up from that, it's going to be a lot easier.
Sure. I do want to talk about that culture you're building there, but first I want to get into the players and the roster you have. That's obviously the most interesting topic for many of the fans watching. How did you originally put together this roster? Like, whose decision was it to put together these guys and bring them together like this?
I worked pretty closely with Noah in creating this roster. It's been a pretty crazy offseason. A lot of teams are getting imports from Europe and Korea. It was just basically a hard process. We looked at so many different players. There was a lot of different options. I'm super, super happy with how things worked out. I think we have an extremely competitive roster. In the end, we ended up going with Huni and Reignover, former Fnatic players from Korea, pretty huge superstars. I think this was probably really important to us because they come in with a lot of built-in synergy as they've been playing together for 2 really successful seasons in Europe. In addition to that, we have Pobelter, we have WildTurtle, and we have Adrian. 3, I think, of the top North American talent that exists right now. So altogether, I think we have a really strong roster.
Now, you mentioned Huni and Reignover. How did that in particular come about? Because it's obviously big news for them to be leaving Fnatic, arguably the best Western team in the world, perhaps inarguably the best Western team in the world to this point. How did that move come about in particular?
I know Huni and Reignover were looking at a lot of their different options in the offseason, and in the end, I think they decided that they really wanted a new environment and that we would just be the best fit for them with what we could offer and kind of our entire approach to building a new environment and team.
What about Pobelter? Coming over, very popular, of course, from CLG, having some perhaps issues there with whether he would start or not. Did you offer him the guarantee of playing time, and is that how he was sold in the team, or was it just the roster you had putting together?
Well, Pobelter had already decided that he wasn't going with. So Pobelter had already been released from CLG at the point that we started talking to him.
Okay.
I think as soon as we started talking to him, it became very clear that'd be a really good fit for our organization. I've always been pretty outspoken of how talented he is as a player, and I think he's going to be a really good fit here.
Turtle, another player who had some playing time issues recently with TSM, of course, another big name from a big team. How did he come into the house?
I know Turtle really well. I worked with TSM for over a year, so I had a lot of time working with Turtle. I think he's a fantastic player. Obviously, it's well documented that he had a bit of a down point at some time in the summer set, but I picked it up really well for Worlds. He played pretty well at Worlds, and he performed really well practicing for Worlds as well. I think with a new fresh start, I think he's going to perform really well for us. I'm really happy that he's on the team.
So all big names here, but I think Adrian perhaps the smallest name just because the others are so big. How was the decision made to bring Adrian into the team?
Adrian was one of the first players actually that I really wanted on our team. I think he's honestly one of the top NA players right now that hasn't seen a lot of huge results with his team and time on Impact. I think he's definitely going to be one of the top supports next season. I really love the amount of motivation and how committed he seems to being the best player he can be. I think he's got one of the greatest attitudes. His response to not getting to Worlds this year was to play a ton of solo queue, get a ton of accounts at the top of solo queue, and he's just working with him now. Even for the short time I can tell that he's a real great player focused on improving.
Any thoughts on how the roster fits together? And Robert, I would ask you how you build the fit together for this team, how you kind of create chemistry for them, because they come from different backgrounds, different nationalities, and different cultures.
It's different in esports than it is traditional sports. In traditional sports, you can have a soccer team that can have 17 different nationalities with 17 different languages, and the coach doesn't speak any of them, and they have to work together and play together for a 4-year contract, for example. And yet it seems to work. The more successful teams generally have different backgrounds, different nationalities, but the culture is exactly the same. So the culture within the club will dictate how well and the application to the goals of the organization and the team. So as long as you have players that have an open mind, are hardworking, and kind of subscribe to the culture you're trying to build, then everything else falls into place. So it's a little bit less how are we going to get guys from different backgrounds to work together, and more along the lines of how are we going to get these guys to kind of work towards a common goal every day. And when you can do that, you can get a really, really good team. And I think that's what you saw from, let's say, from Fnatic last year, for example, is that they weren't really given a great shot or a great hope about doing well, but they did really, really well because they all bought into what they were doing. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do here. Every different team will have a different culture. Every region will have a different subculture. So we got some guys that are coming from Europe. We have guys that were in NA. And we're not trying to get them to buy into the region itself, more so what we're trying to build at the team right now, and hopefully maintain that all the way through however well we do in the LCS split, playoffs, and maybe beyond.
There is often a lot of talk about the language differences between Eastern and Western players when you bring them together. Is that a specific obstacle for you, or do you feel it's just kind of part of the process to work through that?
Well, Huni and Reignover have already spent a year playing the ULCS, where they spoke English with their team. I think their English is quite good, and I don't foresee us having any real major communication issues with our team.
Sounds good. Dodo, any thought to unretiring with how good this roster is? How many big players are on the team?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited to see this roster coming in because I couldn't really couldn't perform as well, but I think with this new team, I think we could definitely be a top contender for NLCS, and then I think we have really strong players, so I'm very excited.
I want to ask you as well, Dodo, what's it been like to transition from Team 8 now to Immortals? Because obviously you have some bigger backing now, you have star players coming in, a very different environment with new coaches and all these kinds of things. What has the difference been going from Team 8 to Immortals?
Well, basically, teammate, we were when we first started, we did not have like many other teams who start as the organizations. We did not have much backups or any investors. But for Immortals, we have really big backups and investors coming in, and then we have all the support staff that we have to support these players. So we could definitely support all these talent that we're getting, and then we could definitely use all the talent into being the best team in the NA.
There's been some big changes made, of course, in the offseason. That's kind of the big news here, as the roster upheaval has been so dramatic. How do you guys feel you stack up against some of the other big change teams like TSM, CLG in the region?
I think it's going to be really hard to tell how all of these teams are all going to come together. I think some of the teams that look amazing on paper might not end up working that well. That being said, I think as far as just sheer roster strength, we're definitely a contender for the top team in NA. Yeah.
Robert, I want to go back to you. You mentioned some of the differences between sports, traditional sports, and esports. What, in particular, are some of the main differences you have to consider in building the environment for these players when comparing traditional sports to League of Legends in particular?
The biggest one is that all of these players are going to be living and practicing for a lot of the day together, a lot more than you'd see in traditional sports. If you don't have a place to train outside of where you live, then that can become an issue. If you have players that are playing, living, practicing, and kind of socializing in the same area, can become more difficult. But I think when you have a good subculture within the team, then it works really well. That it seems a little bit less like work and more like you're actually working towards a common goal. And that's really when like championship winning teams actually come into their own, is when everyone's working hard and everyone is enjoying the effort and competition, as opposed to, you don't want it to become a huge stress on everyone. You don't want playoffs and worlds to actually bring people down, to make them feel like there's a huge amount of pressure, to make them feel like there's a huge amount of expectation. The expectation should be more of a motivator than it is anything else. So the guys that we have here are all really, really motivated, really, really productive on solo queue, for example, and we hope to see that when we see them scrim in a few days.
You mentioned expanding the coaching staff and having different people on the coaching staff. You have different roles, different titles. How do your roles blend together, and how do you form like a cohesive managerial staff?
Okay, well, I guess I'll start. I'm the head coach of the team. I'm going to be in charge of structuring practice, leading practice, a lot of the in-game strategy stuff, reviewing with the players, what we're going to be playing. In addition to that, I'm working with analysts to ensure that we come out with like the best strategies possible, and we help ourselves improve as efficiently as possible. Robert, you want to talk about your role?
I'm the performance coach, so working with Dylan, there is an overlap. So we're looking to create the best structure, routine for the players with regard like how they are with their lifestyle, how they are in scrims, and how they are, let's say, with their daily routine. So from the moment they get up to the moment they go to bed, it's pretty much structured so that they get the best quality sleep, the best food, the best exercise, the best prehabilitative work, and the best application to competitive structure. So my job is basically to set Dylan up with a mentally and physically and emotionally strong team so that he can do the best job that he can.
Yeah, and for me as the team manager, I mean, I was a player myself, and so I know what the players want and what the players need. So I'm creating an environment, the best environment that players could live in the house, and I schedule everything so everything works in schedule, in time, perfectly. And then I basically cook for the team, clean the house, and basically the mom of the house.
Or the dad.
I think what we have is a good overlap of someone that has been a pro player before, someone who's got a background in traditional sports, and someone who's actually coached and been an analyst before. So with that combined, we kind of tick all the boxes that we really need to. And if we need anything else with the backing that we have, we can get that in. But right now, we have an equal, let's say, coaching structure, support staff to what any other NA team does have. And it really just comes down to which support staff can be the most consistent in the year to do well.
Do you think having a beefier coaching staff and more diverse coaching staff is a big step towards equalizing the playing field with the best Korean teams? Is that one of the big things Western teams could do to improve?
I think there's a lot of reasons why the Korean teams have been like historically so successful in League of Legends. I think coaching staff and infrastructure is definitely something. I think honestly the West has taken huge strides in the last couple of years to really up their game. I think there are definitely other reasons as why I think Korea will still be a dominant force this year, and it will be difficult to compete with the top Korean teams. But I think infrastructure-wise, coaching staff-wise, and the amount of effort and care that teams are taking to give players the best chance to succeed is definitely looking a lot better like this year and also last year as well.
You mentioned the various factors here. I want to bring up something that's been brought up many times when speaking to people about this issue. Do you think it would help if the LCS were to adapt a best-of-series format rather than the best-of-one? Actually, like
yes.
best of 2 or 3 rather than best of 1. Do you think it would help to kind of level the playing field? Because, of course, in China and Korea, you have that series format every week, so teams get the different approach to each match they play when it's a best of series, as opposed to just playing one game against each team.
I think just anything that gives teams more stage experience and more experience under high-pressure situations and adapting to teams game from game would definitely help teams compete. I think sometimes some people overblow it, like it's this thing that's single-handedly keeping the West back, which is definitely not true. But I think it's definitely something that would help yes. Robert, do you have any thoughts on that in particular?
I pretty much agree. You get more stage experience for players. Like you get experience in a best of 3 on a competitive level as well. So when you do go to, let's say, tournaments whereby they've got people or teams from different regions competing, you're not going to be at that slight disadvantage. It's really hard to replicate that for scrims, even though you can have scrim blocks whereby the intensity is, really, really high, but nothing really compares to when you are up against teams from different regions in a knockout kind of situation. So I think it would be good from that point of view to have it for teams. Whatever Riot needs to do it. It mightn't be logistically very, very easy to do, but in terms of giving players experience, the LCS games are much, much more higher intensity, much better focus concentration from players than you'd find from scrim blocks generally. So there's no downside to adapting it for North America and Europe.
Dylan, you mentioned you thought that Korean dominance would probably continue this year. We have seen recently CLG with a brand new roster beat Jin-hyeok. We've seen TSM beat CJ earlier this year. Of course, Fnatic nearly beat SKT, the best team in the world, at MSI. What is it exactly that you think is keeping Western teams, despite that progress, from being able to make that leap and get to the top of the world?
I think just a lot of it is just due to the amount of talent Korean teams have and how they fit the new talent into their organizations. You have teams like SKT, for example, and other LCK teams that have full under teams and are currently training a bunch of people that are sitting in top 50 Korean solo queue and that are great talents and are players that if they were sitting in North American top 50 solo queue, any LCS team would love to pick them up and give them a chance. I think that's mainly what it comes down to, is just the amount of talent, ranked players that are super trying hard in solo queue and really driven to become pro. Dodo, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, also, you said about like Western teams catching up to Korean teams, but I think it's because Western teams are really adapting to the infrastructure that Korean teams had, because Korean teams had the esports infrastructure from about 10 years ago from StarCraft. So, but I think Korea is still ahead, but I think Western teams are really adapting fast enough to catch up. So I think in time there's going to be about even strength between all the regions.
Well, we'll see if perhaps Immortals has something to say about that. On that note, what are your goals for the team going into next year?
Honestly, I just want to see how scrims start before we make any huge sweeping goals that we're going for first place or we're going for worlds or whatever. I honestly think that this is a team that is absolutely capable of winning the North American LCS, or at least having a top 3 finish. I think that's something I would definitely be shooting for, though.
I'm pretty much the same as Dylan. For that, I think if we can do our jobs pretty well here, that the guys that we have, the raw potential that they have is quite high. If they can maintain a good motivation, if they can maintain a good work ethic, and that a lot of that comes down to the environment that they're in as well, then they can really, really well. But it's really hard to tell. Like on paper, there's some really strong teams, and we're one of them, without a doubt. So it comes down to how well these teams mesh together, how well they play together. If teams can avoid mid-season slumps and how well they do in playoffs, they're all like big question marks. So we'll really find out after the first couple of weeks of LCS how people are actually adapting to the roster changes and the changes in meta.
I want to know if you feel the pressure of the situation, because you have Huni and Reignover, perhaps members of a top 3 team in the world, arguably, of course, with Fnatic. Pobelter, a big name. Turtle, a big name. Adrian, perhaps deserves to be a bigger name than he is. Do you feel pressure to make this team work with the star power you have and the talent you seem to have?
I don't really see it as pressure. I see it more as excitement and expectation that things are going to go well.
Sure.
I think pressure isn't any sort of the word that describes what I think any of our coaching staff are feeling.
Mm-hmm. It's more like an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, opportunity, definitely. Yeah.
It's a good pressure to have, knowing that you can actually do really well, that if you get everything done correctly and people can gel, that you can actually go really, really far. So it's a positive pressure, and there's a little bit of expectation, which is good because that drives you to make sure that you do everything that your job entails and that you work together with everyone here, because in isolation, none of us are going to do a great job, but together we can actually do a pretty good job. So much how they're opposed to a group of 3 guys put together to do individual jobs.
Yeah, I think that it's just like kind of like poker. The players are the hands that we have. I think we have really good hands, and we will work really hard to get the work out the best for the players with our cards that we have.
Sounds good. You mentioned that the goals are still in progress because you haven't seen the team really scrim yet, but what are the immediate goals? What do you want to accomplish right now? What are you working on between now and the start of the LCS split?
Robert?
Pretty much getting them to buy into a culture that we have a framework for. Obviously, that's going to change because we're going to have individual input from the 5 different players that we have, from the coaching staff that we have, but find something that fits for the team for right now, and then work pretty much every hour of every day to try reinforce that, to try get the best possible positive culture so that the working environment really leads towards focused, competitive excellence as opposed to just grinding out things, going in automatic mode and kind of ticking boxes, because you only get so far when you do things autonomously. So we're hoping to build a good culture here that will transfer into competition, will transfer if we ever were to change players or get new teams in. It's more of a Immortals culture as opposed to just building a culture that only works with these 5 players. And that's pretty much the immediate goal. Everything else will kind of fall into place naturally.
I will get you out of here on this question. With the season only weeks away now at this point, how do each of you feel? Are you excited? Are you just ready to get going? Like, what's the primary mood in the house?
I think everyone's like super excited.
Yeah,
it's like
very
extreme.
excited.
Yeah, really excited. Yeah.
We just want the season to start already. So
Scrims and LCS, hopefully that starts as soon as possible. That's what the players work for. That's why they put in the hours into solo queue. It's to be on stage and to actually compete against other teams in front of an audience. So the players, when it gets closer to that time, they're going to be really, really excited.
Well, pretty soon the shuffle will be over and the season will begin, and we're all looking forward to that, I think. I want to thank Dylan, Robert, and June for joining us of the new team Immortals as they embark on their new quest for LCS glory and, of course, world glory eventually. Even if they won't say it, I'll say it. World glory is the goal here. I feel that way.
yeah.
Thanks again for joining us, guys, and thank all of you for watching. Be sure to subscribe at daily.esports on YouTube.